Hello, my name is Ezenwa Ungbenu, and the topic of this discussion is you are what you eat. Now, you are what you eat is a really profound statement, especially in the context of human health, because it gives us insight into the composition of the human body. It tells us of the things that we are made of, because we are made up of the nutrients in food. From food, we get various types of biomolecules. We get proteins, we get carbohydrates, we get lipids, which include your fat and your cholesterol. We get nucleic acids, like your DNA and your RNA. You get all types of vitamins and minerals. And that is what the human body is essentially made up of. So we are a complex interplay of all these types of biomolecules. So essentially, the human body is food transformed. And that's what drove our growth from when we were conceived in the womb to what we are now. Trillions upon trillions of cells. Now, the connection between diet and health has to do with the quality of food. So food is a sort of raw material for your body. If we supply our bodies with high quality raw materials, that is nutrient dense foods, then we also have a high quality body, which you could also call a healthy body. But if we construct our body with low quality foods, like highly processed foods, then we're going to end up with a low quality body. Now, and that's a body that will be at high risk of many chronic degenerative conditions. Now, it seems strange to speak of a quality of body, because it's our body like a TV where you could say, oh, this is plasma, this is high definition, and then this is some boxy old TV that is of low quality. But it's a very, very real analogy. Now, let me try to explain this in the context of nutrient density. Because the human body is a complex interplay of all sorts of nutrients. Your proteins, which serve various types of function in your body, both structural, and they also drive a lot of the reactions and the transformations that occur in your body. They're essentially the machinery of life. So the body requires various thousands upon thousands of molecules, varied types, both your proteins, both your vitamins, your minerals, certain types of carbohydrates, certain types of fatty acids, your cholesterol. It is all those things that make for good health, that complexity. Now, a nutrient-dense food, such as an organic whole food, is in tune with the human machine, because a whole food is minimally processed. So, for example, whole wheat, that it comprises of the endosperm and the bran and the germ, all those multiple layers supply various types of nutrients. Or your fruits and your vegetables. So to list a few: whole grains, fruits, vegetables. You have legumes as well, and certain types of animal products, your eggs, your beef, your chicken. All these foods, what they share in common is they supply the body with a vast array of nutrients, and that's what the body needs, because at the most elemental level, your body is just a biochemical reactor. It's the interaction of an array, a vast array of various types of molecules. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have highly processed food. And unfortunately, highly processed foods comprises a major part of our modern diet, both for the sake of low cost. Sometimes we like the taste, it tastes better because of probably high amounts of sugar, high amounts of fat, and it's more convenient. It has a long shelf life as opposed to many whole foods that quickly spoil, such as your fruits and your vegetables. So at this end, high nutrient density. At this end, low nutrient density. So the evil cousin of some of these organic whole foods at this other end of the spectrum. For example, whole wheat would be at this end of the spectrum. Over here, you can talk about foods made with white flour, which is highly refined whole wheat, where what you're left with is a pure carbohydrate. So you have like white bread, you have your pastries, you have your cookies, your crackers. They're all made with white flour. Then the evil cousin of like fruits would be your fruit juices, which are also highly processed and supply you with a lot of sugar and excess of sugar. Also, you can talk about things like foods that are made with vegetable oils, which are refined from oil seeds. So vegetable oils such as like fried foods and pastries and other types of processed foods. So the basic thing that I just want you to understand is that at this end of the spectrum, a single food supplies you many types of nutrients, not only one sort. It supplies you proteins, supplies you certain types of fiber, which is a type of carbohydrate. It supplies you with various types of fatty acids, and that's what the body needs, because the body is so diverse in the molecules that it is composed of. So food has to reflect that complexity. When food doesn't reflect that complexity at this end of the spectrum, with highly processed food, bad things start to occur, because you start to have some deficiencies. You'll be lacking in certain necessary nutrients that you need for vibrant health, such as your vitamins and your minerals and certain types of fatty acids. For example, omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in certain types of animal products and certain types of vegetables and legumes. But in many highly processed foods, you don't get those omega-3 fatty acids. So, highly processed foods are a major part of the modern diet, and it's leading to bad outcomes, because we can understand that we are presently in the midst of an epidemic of chronic degenerative disease. You have double-digit increases on a year-to-year basis of various types of conditions like type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, liver disease, and whatnot. And a major driver of this epidemic of chronic diseases are the modern diet, which is laced with a lot of highly processed foods. So in addition to getting a very narrow range of nutrients, you also get a lot of synthetic chemicals, because the unfortunate thing about these highly processed foods is that they are often made with very, very low quality ingredients, like very bland ingredients. So they make up for this lack of flavor that is there naturally. There is no natural flavor. So they make up for this with a lot of flavorings, a lot of preservatives, and a lot of enhancers and things of that sort to add texture. And all those synthetic chemicals also play a role in the epidemic of chronic disease that we're witnessing. So let me just try to illustrate, because I've mentioned a couple things. Highly processed foods, when that is your staple food, it creates deficiencies in your body and it creates imbalances in your body. So I just want to illustrate how food can lead to some of the chronic degenerative conditions that are very rampant in the modern times. So let me illustrate this with the instance of your artery. Now your artery is a hugely important passageway. It's part of your cardiovascular system, and it conveys blood away from your heart. And your artery is composed of various layers. And the inner layer of your artery is composed of a specialized cell called an endothelial cell. And it's wrapped by other layers of muscular tissue and connective tissue. And the various layers all serve various purposes. The inner layer is highly specialized in that it is designed to allow blood to flow freely. If you try to pass blood through any other pipe that was not lined with these specialized cells, blood will just rapidly congeal. So it's quite magical. And the other layers impart other properties, because your arteries need the ability to flex. They need a rubber-like consistency because of the way your heart works, which is the central pump that drives blood all around your body. Your heart is not like an electric motor that gives a steady pressure and a steady flow. Your heart contracts and fills up, and so there is varying pressure in accordance with the stroke of your heart. So your arteries need to be able to flex and to contract in accordance with the stroke of the heart. Now, a highly processed diet leads to multiple deficiencies. You know, there are several types of vitamins, and it's possible to be simultaneously deficient in all vitamins. There are hundreds of minerals that the body requires, and it's possible to be deficient in tens, if not hundreds of minerals simultaneously. But I'm just going to limit this example to one vitamin deficiency, vitamin C. And it will also give us a little insight into the role of some of these vitamins in our body. Now, vitamin C is hugely important for many roles, but in the context of our arteries, what we're interested in is how vitamin C is critical for the maintenance of the structural integrity of your arterial wall. So when you're deficient in vitamin C, your arterial wall starts to harden. It loses that elasticity. It's no longer as flexible, and it will also develop some cracks, and it will just have some failures, you could say some structural flaws due to a vitamin C deficiency. So a manifestation of this is that your arteries are less able to flex. So when blood, which flows in a kind of pulsatile nature in accordance with the stroke of your heart, high pressure, slows down a bit and moves again, slows down a bit and moves again. So when blood is flowing of that sort, your arteries are no longer able to flex, and you end up with higher pressure pushing up against the walls of your artery, and a manifestation of that is hypertension. Hypertension basically means chronically high blood pressure, and we know that it is a chronic degenerative condition, and it is linked, or it puts you at risk for many other chronic degenerative conditions such as heart disease, such as kidney disease, also strokes and heart attacks, and many other things. So this is just an instance of how a deficiency can directly lead to certain chronic degenerative conditions. And I think it gives us a little idea. This is what is at the heart of the many conditions that we're going through today, because hypertension is quite regular. In some countries, especially in the rich world, you can have up to 40%, between 30 to 40% of the population being hypertensive. Now, historically, human beings don't have such high rates of these conditions. It has to do with the types of food that we have started to eat in recent times. Now, in addition to multiple deficiencies, a highly processed food diet also supplies the body with too much of certain types of nutrients. So you end up with an excess of certain types of nutrients. Now, highly processed foods usually contain refined carbohydrates and vegetable oils. So let me illustrate another way these excesses of certain nutrients can lead to chronic degenerative conditions. So let's consider refined carbohydrates, such as your white flour and your refined sugar. Let's say every day I drink a soft drink, possibly 2 or 3 bottles of a soft drink, and I also eat like instant noodles, which are made with white flour. I eat white rice, which is a refined grain, and I also eat some pasta, some spaghetti, which is also made from white flour. So I get a lot of refined carbohydrates, which all break down into sugars in my body. And this wreaks havoc, because the body is not designed for refined carbohydrates and only, so much refined carbohydrates. It requires the range of all types of nutrients, because that reflects the complexity of the body, and it is in tune with the requirements of the body. So too much refined carbohydrates, one thing that it leads to is that it leads to spikes of insulin in your body. Now, insulin is a hugely important hormone. Now, when we regularly consume refined carbohydrates, we develop a condition that is called insulin resistance. And this proceeds from repeated spikes in insulin. When we take a soft drink, there is a spike in insulin. When we eat instant noodles, there's a spike in insulin. When we eat cookies, crackers, all these sugar-rich snacks, there are spikes in insulin. We drink fruit juice, a spike in insulin. And the body now starts to get used to these spikes of insulin, and then you now have a chronically high level of insulin. And certain cells of your body stop responding effectively to insulin, or they lose sensitivity to insulin. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail of how this mechanism truly unfolds, but insulin resistance is a hub. It puts you at high risk for many other sorts of chronic degenerative conditions. Another name for insulin resistance is metabolic syndrome, because insulin resistance is a metabolic disorder and it puts you at risk for a lot of metabolic diseases. Insulin resistance puts you at high risk of type 2 diabetes, because when the cells of your body no longer respond to insulin, you end up with high blood sugar. So it puts you at risk of type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance stimulates the growth of certain types of plaque in your arteries, atheromas. It stimulates the deposition of cholesterol in your arteries, which puts you at high risk of heart disease and also stroke. Insulin resistance also stimulates the growth of cancers, because insulin serves various types of functions in your body, and it also stimulates cell proliferation or cell division or cell growth. Now, when you have too much growth signal in your body, you're at higher risk of abnormal cell proliferation, which is the hallmark of cancer. So it also puts you at high risk of certain types of cancer. Insulin resistance stimulates the growth of abnormal proteins in your brain, which are certain types of plaque, such as beta amyloid and tau proteins, which puts you at high risk of dementia, which include Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Additionally, insulin resistance stimulates your liver to synthesize too much cholesterol. It puts you at high risk of high blood cholesterol. And not only cholesterol, it puts you at high risk of high blood levels of triglycerides and certain fatty acids. So in addition to cholesterol, you can also call it dyslipidemia, because you have high blood levels of various types of lipids. You have high blood levels of cholesterol and high blood levels of triglycerides, which are just fat. In addition, it puts you at high risk of fatty liver disease, because it leads to the abnormal deposition of fat in your liver. And all this just proceeds from an excess of refined carbohydrates in your diet and the imbalances that it creates. So highly processed foods injure you from two angles. They create multiple deficiencies that drives disease, and it creates imbalances from an excess of certain types of nutrients, which also drives disease. Now, the news is not all gloomy and terrible. There is also a brighter side to you being what you eat. And that brighter side has to do with when we make that decision to alter the composition of our diet, and we decide to scoot along this spectrum of nutrient density towards the high end and eat more whole foods, where we eat more green leafy vegetables, all sorts of vegetables, when we take more fruits, your orange, your lime, your watermelon, when we eat more whole grains, your millet, your brown rice, when we eat more legumes, varieties of beans, when we eat more high quality animal products, when we eat chicken, when we eat eggs, when we eat fish, and hopefully organic, because we're also trying to save our bodies, or protect ourselves from synthetic chemicals, your herbicides, your pesticides, your fertilizers, and your harmful residues, and also, especially for animal products, the antibiotics and growth hormones that are used in conventionally raised livestock. So when we decide to move along this spectrum, there is tremendous capacity for the body to heal and to regenerate itself. So these conditions, according to the medical establishment, type 2 diabetes is incurable. Cancer can only maybe be managed or maybe dealt with highly toxic treatments like chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or also surgery. But when we adopt a nutritional approach and we start to put high quality nutrients in our body in a consistent way for weeks, for months, for years, we find that there is a tremendous capacity for the body to heal itself. Because at the most fundamental level, disease is just damage. Heart disease is damage to your coronary arteries that supply your heart. High blood pressure many times is just of damage to the arteries when they lose flexibility or when they develop plaques within them. Kidney disease is merely damage to your kidney. Liver disease is also just damage to your liver. So it's all about damage, damage, damage. And this damage can be healed because your body has a tremendous capacity, has a very wide capacity to heal itself. Now it's all about giving the body the right raw materials. Now, you are what you eat goes in two directions. It gives us insight into the cause of disease, and it also gives us valuable insight into the solution of disease. Now, I hope you found this talk useful. If you're interested in more information on how to heal yourself with food, you can visit my website where I have information across various formats. I have articles, I have audio files, and I also have video lectures. CreativeJuicesNG.com. Thank you so much for your time.